Back, you're just in time to continue the program Nature's Corner right here over High Television with me, Jabi Katie. Of course, as earlier reiterated, Nature's Corner is a program on High Television that comes on your TV screens every Thursday at some 3 p.m. to 4 p.m., where we encourage you to keep glued to your screens as we take you through the world of environment. We tell you what is going wrong in the environment, how it affects you and I, and how we can solve these problems. And every time we come here, we remind you that the environment is not a far-fetched a topic. It's not a far-fetched space, It's not something that is far off from us. It's not something that does not concern us because it concerns each and every one of us. As we always say here on this program, the environment is where you build your house. The environment is where you farm. The environment is where your school is located. The environment is where your business is going on. Every part where we find ourselves, we live in an environment, and if we do not protect this environment, it may come back to affect us. Because imagine if where you farm, which is the environment, if it has a problem, then definitely you have a problem. If where you do business has a problem, then of course you will not be well. And if where you go to school, where you sleep has a problem, then you will not be well. And today we are looking at one of the most pertinent issues about the environment which affects each and every one of us. We're talking about drainage systems, but then again somebody may ask, how does poor drainage affect us? For starters, first of all, what is a drainage system? Of course, if you go around Boya, you have what we call the gutters, where water pass through, a segment of the environment that has been dedicated for water to pass through. When rain falls, you see water passing through these gutters. Those are drainage systems, and they are very important in the ecosystem, as our guest shall tell us in a moment ahead. But for now, let's give you update as to what is making news in the globe. We start first in Texas, rather, as we visit Texas to know how people have died due to a storm that unfolded in Texas. Of course, a storm has killed 3 persons, rather, with 2.7 million persons displaced in Texas, there in the USA. On July 8th, tropical storm Beryl brought howling winds and torrential rain to southeast Texas on Monday, killing at least 3 people, flooding highways and closing oil ports, cancelling more than 1,300 flights, and knocking out power to more than 2.7 million homes and businesses. Beryl, the season's earliest Category 5 hurricane on record, weakened from a hurricane after pounding the coastal Texas town of Matagorda with dangerous storm surges and heavy rain before moving across Houston, the U.S. National Hurricane Center said. And of course, the storm, which was expected to rapidly weaken as it moved inland, swept the destructive path through Jamaica, Grenada, and St. Vincent and the Grenadines last week. It killed at least 11 in Mexico and the Caribbean before reaching Texas, as confirmed by the authorities over there. In Texas, a 53-year-old man and a 74-year-old woman were killed in 2 accidents by trees that fell on their home. So those are the people that died in Texas. A 53-year-old man and a 74-year-old woman who were killed in their homes as the storm forced trees upon their homes. And a third person in the city of Houston, a Houston employee going to work, drowned in an underpass, as authorities there revealed. And it's such a sad situation over there in Texas. State officials are yet to assess the economic damage, as officials remained on a rescue footing while powerful winds continue to blow. Restoring power will take several days, said authorities. So meantime, the population in Texas are living in darkness and power outage, and of course 3 persons have died due to the storm right there in Texas. And from Texas, we move over to South Korea, where rain causing landslide has displaced many and caused havoc in that part of the globe. South Korea's national rail company on Wednesday suspended some regular roads and slowed bullet trains because of heavy rains in the central region that caused flooding and landslides. The city of Gunsan in South Korea received nearly 100 millimeters of rain within an hour early on Wednesday, and a number of areas in the central region received precipitation of more than 200 millimeters a day, according to the weather agency there. And the month of July is annually the monsoon season in the country, but it has experienced extreme weather in the summer months in recent years, which President Yoon Suk-yeol has said should be anticipated due to climate change. Of course, it is a new talk right now on the globe, wherein many more countries are witnessing much more disasters due to the talk of climate change, as the president of South Korea rightly highlighted that the country may be witnessing much more floods, much more landslides and other disasters due to talk of climate change. And as we can all witness, the havoc that these storms and landslides have created, killing persons and destroying properties. And of course, we are called upon to put in more effort towards fighting such problems, towards fighting this issue of climate change. And now, talk about one of the issues which lead to climate change highly is pollution. Of course, plastic pollution and pollution as a whole leads a lot to climate change. And of course, we shall be looking at how pollution stock or waste, which causes pollution, stock in our gutters, how it contributes to climate change, and of course, disasters, and how it affects us all in the long run. We're taking a jingle break. When we come back, we discuss more on this topic. Welcome back, dear viewers. It's a pleasure to have you glued to your screen right up to this moment. And of course, that's the reason why we're here every time to educate you, because we cannot be here 247 to talk on these screens, on these airways, without you being there to watch us and, of course, hopefully implement all of what we say right here on the program Nature's Corner. This is High Television, and the program on board is Nature's Corner. I am your host, Jabi Kitty, and today we are looking at drainage systems, how they contribute to pollution and disasters, and what mechanisms we can put in place to solve this issue of a poor drainage systems. But first of all, let's have a highlight of what drainage systems are. And throughout this conversation, we shall have a guest with us who shall educate us properly on the issues of drainage systems vis-a-vis pollution and disasters. He is a trained environmentalist from the Department of Environmental Science in the University of Boya, an astute one at that. He goes by name Franklin Jumbe. there, and it's the first time we are having him on the program. Good afternoon to you, Franklin.
Good afternoon, madam.
How are you doing?
No, I'm doing just fine.
When you were passing by, did you see the drainage at Malingo?
Of course I did. So it was horrible.
How horrible was it?
It was so bad. Yeah, when I was coming, I even saw one at GC, but it's so bad that when the rains fall so much, you pass there, you see the whole place flooded. So it's something which really calls for concern.
So in a town like Buea, for instance, can we, as an environmentalist who you've been observing the issue, the town of Buea, can we categorically say that Buea has an issue with our drainage systems?
I would like to say yes, because first of all, it starts from the personality, from the people, from their perception, how they see it. From what I've carried out, from research I've carried out, and areas which I've visited, I discovered that many people are very aware about this issue of pollution, but they don't just care about it. Like a certain area in Buea, let me say around Buea town, I discovered that during the rainy season, when the rain falls very heavy, you discover the people carrying their dirt and throwing even inside the gutter. Meanwhile, they are very aware that this particular dirt that can cause flood. It can even affect even food security, and it can also affect even the livelihood of the people in that area.
I don't want us to draw on, maybe to just put a mark on some of the issues of the drainage systems that we have in Buea. You mentioned the Buea town, the case of Buea town, and also the case of the GCE board. We kind of understand that if we were to look at it deeply, it may seem to be two different problems, but still with the drainage systems. I understand that one has to do more with maybe being blocked by debris and plastics, while the other is just poorly constructed.
Yeah.
So if you can just throw light on that.
I think we have a very big issue when it comes to that. Because if we look at the nature of how some of these gutters have been built, you discover that we have even they are being covered. The fact that they are being covered, it simply means that when the rain comes down with so much plastic, with so much debris, it doesn't give them that, it doesn't allow it to flow very well. So the size itself is a problem. I think if the size can be increased, it can help solve that issue, because we understand that Buea is a town in which the population is at a rise.
Yeah.
If you look at Buea in early 2000s and now, you discover the population of Buea has increased. An increase in the population of Buea simply means that there is increase in human activity. There is increase in consumption pattern. There is increase in the usage of materials. So all these stuff finally ends up at the gutter if not properly treated.
And then the case of that of GC board, when during the rainy season, it is difficult to pass through. If you're passing there, you must get wet. I'm sure that is not plastic. It has to do more with the way it has been constructed. Yeah,
I think it's not just plastic, because when we are talking of pollution and we are talking of that particular area in concern, we see that the size itself is a problem. And then if you look at the topography of that particular area, you discover that it's a hilly area. That shows that when the rains fall, it simply just come down straight, and most of the materials as a result of erosion can find themselves in the gutters. And if that particular gutter is not being cleaned, maybe more often, we'll just simply have it reoccurring itself again and again. And that has been one of the issues why we are having bad roads. If you go even at the level of sandpit, you will simply see a clear illustration of what I'm talking there. You see
the sandpit bridge
is bad. It's horrible.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are here in the studio. We're talking about drainage systems and vis-a-vis pollution and climate change. You mentioned that the gutters are small, be it that when water comes by with these debris and plastics, it is difficult for them to get through. But I have a question: should we even have plastics in the gutters? Is that not a problem in itself? Maybe you can throw more light on that relationship between poor drainage systems and how they foster plastic pollution or pollution in general.
All right, thank you so much, because this issue of plastic pollution is actually a very pressing issue when it comes to our society. First of all, before I proceed, I know we are dealing with people from from diverse backgrounds who might not even know what we are talking about. So it is just very important that everybody knows what we are talking about. So when we are talking about plastic pollution, we are talking of the discharge or the release of plastic materials in the environment in such a way that it causes adverse impact to man. So we can have these materials being released, but if it doesn't goes beyond its threshold value, we can talk of contamination. But when we are talking of pollution, that means it has gone a certain level that it has now become a problem. One of these issues that is at the rise, which causes this, like I went to one wedding, and I discovered that when they shared drinks around, some people were taking 2, some people were taking 3. By the end of the day, those who took 2, maybe 2 tops, 3 tops, they didn't finish it. So it's a whole problem, because if you do not finish a top, maybe for example, what happens is that top is going to be discarded. That's just one extra plastic you have just simply sent to the environment. So I think that responsible consumption can also be one of the means in which we can help reduce the amount of plastics we have in our environment, given the nature of our local reality in Buea. We understand the topography of Buea, we understand the nature of Buea, and we see other companies doing their best to see how they can solve this issue of waste management and solve this issue. We have other NGOs who are also engaged themselves in solving this particular issue of plastic pollution. So when at times these plastics find themselves in the gutters, it becomes a very big problem. And with the presence of debris, maybe like trees, maybe other materials, they get entangled and they block the passage of water. This water can no more flow in its normal channel, which it is normally supposed to flow. And when this happens, the water is now bound to overflow its banks. And that's why we find floods everywhere in Buea.
Okay, now let's relate it a little bit to where we find ourselves currently in Malingo. There was a time when to pass through the streets of Malingo, you need to have so much courage and boldness, because there was a pungent smell emanating from these gutters, you understand. Now, maybe somebody, one pa or one ma may be in the house and does not understand why this smell was coming from these gutters, why this terrible odor was oozing from the gutters, So how does in fact, maybe you explain to us better as environmentalists, why the streets of Malingo, all of a sudden, as people were saying, it was almost becoming like Douala, where we're having so much odor that passing by, you have to cover your nostrils.
I think if you look at Moliko in general, you discover that we have Moliko is becoming more of a commercial area where we have several activities taking place in Moliko. We have women who have engaged themselves in petty businesses. Some are selling corn along the roadside, some are selling vegetables along the roadside, some are selling many other materials along the roadside. And most of the times when they discharge these materials, maybe knowingly or unknowingly, to the environment, and we have this heavy rainfalls that comes and washes these materials into the gutters. And we understand that for us to have a proper decomposition of materials, we need sufficient oxygen. So when these plastics come and entangle themselves with this material, they reduce the amount of oxygen which these materials need for them to decompose. So what happens most of the time is that they take a very long period of time for them to decompose. And this is what most of the time causes this pungent odor that we have in our environment.
Okay, I'm still trying to grasp that, hoping the viewers to. But is there a way you can make that explanation much more simpler? Is there a way you can make it much more simpler?
Let me try to see if I can do it much more simpler. In other words, what I'm trying to say is that we should have the habit, or we should cultivate or nurse the attitude of properly disposing our refuge. Maybe, for instance, we have maybe in our household waste, there is more generation of maybe vegetables, so it all depends on what we consume. We do consume on a daily basis. So we should learn means in which we can use these materials as a resource. Like for instance, I was talking to a friend of mine. I was telling him that look at Boya. Boya is a problem, and I was telling him that no, it's not actually a problem. It's actually a solution to the younger people, because if you identify an issue, then you begin to look for a means to solve the issue. So
you're being innovative.
Yes, you bring out innovative ideas, which is good. So if you look at what is happening, a young man can take upon himself to say, okay, in my area, maybe in Moliko or in any of this area, okay, I can decide that all the refuge in this area, mostly the biodegradable or mostly the organic. When I talk of the organic, I'm talking of those goods which are perishable.
Yes, those that can easily get rotten.
Yeah, those that can easily get rotten. So that's what I'm talking about. So they can use that one. They say if after having enough skills, they can produce organic fertilizer. So you see, we are having increase and spike of cases of cancer and other related diseases. You hear people start talking about increase in fertilizer usage, and of which, if we use these materials very well, produce good quality fertilizer, it can as well serve this purpose and increase the productivity. So it's something that we just need to educate more people, for them to acquire more skills, to see how collectively we can solve this issue of plastic pollution and pollution as a whole.
All right, thank you very much, Franklin. Now, aside from pollution, we understand that these drainage, these poor drainages, they also have other environmental effects that come back to harm us. I remember last year during the flash flood of 18 March in the Boyatown environment, scientists and environmental experts opined that it was one of the major proponents, or one of the major causes of the flood was that drainage systems had been blocked or waterways had been built on, and so due to the poor drainage system and urban planning, it gave room for the water to exceed their limit and come without force. And there was one mama there, I think at that point, where at the governor's office, when they were receiving their gift from the territorial minister, she could not quite comprehend how that happened, how the drainage system contributes to the flood and all of that. So hopefully, if she's watching, or not, maybe somebody watching can pass to the other neighbor, to the public watching right now. What explanation will you give to them on how these poor drainage systems contribute or escalate flooding situations?
All right, thank you so much for that wonderful question. I would like to say that one of the most pressing issue we have is this issue of poverty. Poverty is I would not like to say it is a disease, even though it is, because it is a condition which is not good. And if you look at Boyatown, you discover that there are several houses which have been built along the waterways, especially in the gutters. They are very big gutters, and you know that areas like this, which are very, very susceptible to flooding, they are relatively cheap as well. So someone who knows, maybe he cannot purchase a piece of land for let's just say almost about 5 million francs, and he sees an opportunity where an area can be sold to him, maybe 1.5 million or even less. He will simply go for it. And building in such an area, at that point in time, you are just looking at the economic benefits, but not knowing the adverse impact if the heavy rains fall. We are all very, very aware of the amount of rain that comes down from the Boya Mountain. It's not something of today. It is something that has been happening, but people don't just give, they just give
a deaf
ear to read, like, anything can happen. I just have to be in my house. I just have to have a standard of living. I just have to be somewhere. So if you look at that system, look at what happened. Like I saw the mayor went ahead, he even destroyed some of those houses which were even along the line. So it is something which is really, really bad. And when these areas which were normally very large, because they are built houses along this area, the path is now small, and given the velocity and the intensity of the rains which are coming down from the mountain, they can no more flow in that small path. So they are coming with so much force. So they find themselves struggling to pass in a very narrow path. And if they cannot go through the narrow path, what happens is that they have to go through and extend their banks, find themselves into areas where they were normally not supposed to find themselves. So
people's homes.
In people's home, we see how we had destruction of properties, we have destruction of farmland. We had even loss of lives. And last time I saw, that's why I keep saying that when we see heavy rains fall, we shouldn't even think of even going into the rains, because we never know the intensity of the rainfall most of the time. It's so sad. I heard one man die because he saw the rain, but he didn't know the current which was in the water, and the water just took him. It's really a pathetic situation. But we must look into this as well.
In this case, Franklin, if we were to channel blames, who do we say is to blame in such a situation? Is it the inhabitants who take on themselves to go litter these gutters and to build on places where they know they are obstructing waterways, or to construct houses without proper drainage systems? Or is it the council for improper follow-up and inadequate urban planning? Who do we blame in this situation?
I think in this situation we have a shared responsibility. Everybody is supposed to be blamed with this, because if we look at it from the perspective of the community, you discover that communities that are very close by to these gutters, when the rains are heavy, they discharge their waste into the waters without even knowing where it's going to find itself. So they themselves also contribute to it. And then also, if we also have to look at it from the government point of view, you see that whenever there is a project, there is the essence or the need for a management, for a system, for a follow-up. So if you look at it, most of these gutters, they are all filled. How many times do they go in to say, okay, we are cleaning these gutters? So just now, I think the coming of these holidays, maybe I'm sure the Buea Council are going to maybe launch a holiday program that they are going to bring students that are going to clean these gutters. But it is not just supposed to be the holiday period where the gutters are supposed to be cleaned. It's supposed to be maybe after 2 months, every 3 months, they pass and check the drainage system to see if the drainage systems are being blocked, to see. So it should be something which is constant. It should be a constant thing that we should say, okay, this is what we need to do. And also, I'll also say that lack of awareness is also an issue. Like we keep saying that if you live in a glass house, do not throw stones, because you never know where the stones will fall. Like you see, many people at times when they see a situation like this, they just say, what is it there? If somebody just maybe buys something, it doesn't even say that, okay, let me discard it in the right place. It just litters it. Say, actually, we have the ISACAM now. We have people who are going to take care of this environment. We have people who are being paid. So just that idea itself is another problem on its own. So people have to be properly oriented on this issue and see how they too can contribute to solve this particular issue.
All right, thank you very much, Franklin. And of course, ladies and gentlemen, we're still right on Nature's Corner. And today we are discussing about poor drainage systems and how they contribute to plastic pollution, pollution as a whole, and disasters. And we know that these plastic pollution and flooding situations, when they do occur, they come back to harm us even more. For instance, when the drainage systems here in Malingu had a problem, and when this pungent smell was oozing from these gutters, who were those inhaling this odor? It was us, the population, inhaling all of this smell, and that was air pollution. And sometimes maybe you see people go to the hospital and they are being diagnosed for illnesses and diseases due to things like that. We hear of cholera and other heartborne diseases due to poor sanitary conditions or poor hygienic conditions of our gutters. When the flooding situation happened last year on 18 March in Buea Town, in the Buea Town environment, it was you and I who lost our homes. It was you and I who lost relatives. It was you and I who lost businesses, who lost infrastructures, who were homeless, injured, and all of that. It was you and I that were affected. So it is high time we take the bull by the horn and see how we can solve this problem, and do not just leave it to the hand of environmentalists, because we are all concerned. And right about now we'll have our guests who will tell us on what you and I can do, since it's you and I suffering the effect, what you and I can do to solve this issue of poor drainage systems vis-a-vis pollution. We'll take on a break. When we'll come back, we'll meet our guests, but of course we're taking a break on to Kumba. We visit the city of Kumba, and we see how a community is engaged engaging to clean their street, their gutters, and to keep their city clean. We're giving you an example of a solution, what your community can do as well to emulate such steps to see how you can also work towards cleaning your community, cleaning your gutters and drainage systems. Let's meet the people of Kumba and see the engagement that they are taking to keep their city clean.
Being the first Thursday of the month in Kumba, dubbed Keep Kumba Clean Up Day, some denizens are crying foul for refuse that are littered around their business premises. Talking to some of them, they express their worries and call on the company that be to come to their aid.
So for you now, Kumba clean or Kumba not clean down?
No, Kumba clean. Yes, why are Kumba clean? And if
One of the hygiene and sanitation workers that were spotted evacuating dirt have this to say.
Lord, those are death and running matter. They are not good for human health. So we just say we should pin them and then call for them, so they can come and remove all these things and let people breathe normal air, because we are not breathing well. I can see I'm wearing cash name. I don't have corona, but the place is not conducive to breathe, so I need to prevent myself.
It should be noted, some major areas in the city of Kumba have become a steady dumping ground for refuse.
Of course, that report from the city of Kumba is courtesy Kumba correspondent Valentin, who has compiled these footages for us this afternoon, and who has taken us to the city of Kumba, and to show us how indigents in that part of the country are working towards ensuring that their community is clean and rid of gutters to protect their drainage systems and the city as a whole from environmental degradation. Frankly, I'm sure this should be something that other communities could emulate.
Yeah, there are several things that communities can get engaged to solve this particular issue. I think it shouldn't be left to the government or to the city mayor or to the municipality totally for them to handle this issue. I just think that maybe if you are occupying a store or your house is along an area where the gutter passes by, you should have the responsibility time to time to even clean that area. Don't just say, okay, the council will pass by and they will be the ones to clean that area. So it should be a kind of responsibility you have to yourself. If I do not clean this gutter, it can cause serious health impact to me. It can serve as a breeding ground for mosquitoes and maybe the outbreak of other tropical diseases. So it should be a collective effort, and we are also calling on smaller groups of individuals who can engage themselves in small community clean-up programs. We have small meetings, we have small groups of people, we have the NGOs, we have other sets of people. Let them get engaged in this activity to see how collectively we can solve this issue of improper waste management. And also, I also think sensitization is also another means in which we can use to solve this issue, because I believe if the people are very informed about the impact of plastics, because at the end of the day, this plastic we are talking about, statistics shows that in 2050s, the oceans will be covered by plastics. Then we begin to ask ourselves, if now at 2024, a price of mackerel or fish we are saying is very expensive, now that we even have it, but by 2050s, when the plastics must have covered the whole oceans, then where are we going to have the fish? Then we can just imagine the price of a fish by then. So it is something that we just need to do now to prevent the devastated impact that we might have in the future. So I just think it is a collective effort, and people should be very, very aware, and they should know that plastic pollution is a major issue when it comes to our sustainability, our cohabitation of how we can together live in a wonderful society.
Okay, and now I know you mentioned that it is not totally left to the government and municipal authorities to ameliorate the situation. But of course, we cannot put a blind eye on their responsibilities. I remember you saying earlier, this is a shared responsibility. So what point should be hammered on for the council listening to know that they have this and this role to play to ameliorate the situations and to ameliorate our drainage systems?
Yeah, I think even though the community has a part to play, but I think the council has a greater role to play, because we have areas which the community cannot engage in those areas. Like we have the GC board is an area which is, I think the council should step in such areas. We have the Bakuri town, the council should step in such areas where the impact is very heavy and heavily felt. I think the council should get themselves into those areas. I think there was one point in time I saw this council police, they used time to time, they used to go, but it's been a while I see them doing that. So I don't know if it's because of the season, the rainy season, that they themselves, they don't find it convenient or conducive for them to step out to carry out this activity. But it should be something that they themselves get engaged. Time to time they do clean these gutters, especially these areas that always cause a lot of flood. Yeah, so they should look into it to see how they can always fix this issue around this area.
But should we just be reactive and not proactive? Because I know from my small knowledge in environmental science, I know that even the areas that are not really prone to flood, they can really help in escalating the flooding situations in those risky areas. Because even when we still have poor drainage systems, these plastics and debris will still leave from these non-risk areas to the risk zones. So should we only be reactive and not proactive?
No, we have to be proactive, because we understand the nature of plastics. So plastic themselves, they have a transboundary nature. That simply means that maybe an area which normally didn't have plastics, because of erosion, because of runoff, carry themselves to another area. Maybe an area that had plastics and that area which didn't have plastics, because of erosion and other activities, these plastics that tend to find themselves in this area. So it is not just because I find myself in an area where there are no plastics, so I shouldn't do anything when it comes to plastics, or I shouldn't speak up because say, okay, I don't have plastics in my area, so it doesn't concern me. So it concerns everybody. The fact that the impact has not been felt in that particular community, it doesn't mean that the impact cannot be felt in that particular community in time to come. So it's just for us to put precautionary precautions in place to see how we can limit the impact of this plastic pollution to our environment. So it should be a collective effort. It should be a shared responsibility for all of us to get engaged into solving this issue.
All right, thank you very much, Franklin. I also remember that during the start of the program, you did mention that youth can capitalize on this problem to create innovative solutions. I'm now banking on you being a youth and being on this program right about now. So maybe you can complete this proposition by maybe you can list some of the innovative solutions that youth can put in place or can get engaged in to solve some of these, or to solve the issue of the poor drainage systems. If you're a youth now, what idea is coming to your mind right now?
All right, okay, thank you so much. It is a wonderful question, and we understand that whenever we have issues, whenever we have a problem is an opportunity in disguise. So when we look at this issue of plastics, it is an opportunity in disguise. Like, what are the opportunities that this issue can bring out to the youth? We have NGOs like the Eco Green and other NGOs who engage themselves in transforming plastic from one form to another. Yeah. We also have the Eco Green. They buy plastics. They buy plastics. So if a youth can get himself engaged or form a group of students to say, okay, let's see how we can keep our environment clean. By keeping environment clean, we are getting rid of all the plastics in that environment. By carrying out that activities, you can as well sell these plastics to these companies that they buy these plastics, they recycle these plastics, they transform these plastics to other forms to reduce the impact on the environment.
Please, one question. You know, economy is hard. the present economy is hard. I just want to know how much does a plastic cost from to sell what quantity or what amount for what quantity?
You understand, when we are talking of this issue of plastic pollution, we are not looking at it totally from the monetary term, but we are looking at it from the perspective of why we are solving the issue, or we are reducing the impact of the problem. Then we are looking at some of the benefits which can be attached to it. We have presently a kilogram of plastic is being sold at 50 francs,
which is encouraging, because why still throw it away when you can still gather them and get 50 francs?
Yeah, so it is a problem. Like the other day, I went to Douala with Mr. Fongu Eric, who is the CEO of Isnedev, and we went and we met Nescaf, Total, and most of these supermarkets that make use of plastics. So we try to find out from there what are the measures they put in place to reduce the impact of these plastics, or what are the measures they put in place to receive some of these plastics they give to the community. And it was quite shocking to see that they were already saying that if you can bring a certain amount of plastics, they give you discount.
Really?
Yeah, they give you discount.
Why are we not aware? I
so
the plastics in my backyard.
Yeah, it's just something that we just need to bring out to the community. Everybody just need to say, okay, we have, for instance, we have the GFOB, we have the Y complex, we have all these big supermarkets. They can as well say, okay, in our own way of fighting the plastic pollution, okay, if you are bringing maybe 2 kilograms, 3 kilograms of plastics, maybe you are going to have a discount in whatsoever you are buying. And it's also another innovative means to reduce the impact of plastic pollution.
Okay, thank you very much, Franklin. Unfortunately, our time is beckoning against us, and the producer is already hinting on us to put a wrap. It has been an interesting conversation so far. Jumea and I have been discussing on drainage systems vis-a-vis plastic pollution and flooding. How do our poor drainage systems contribute to plastic pollution, and also how do they escalate flooding situations? And he has talked extensively. We have cited the issue of the Boyertown the flash flood in Boyertown of 18 March, in which environmental experts advanced that it was due to poor drainage systems and that waterways were blocked. And so to you also building your house, I'm sure that's also a personal point, because most persons, they build their house, they don't consider maybe to have a small gutter where water will pass. Yeah. Every time we blame the government, we blame municipal councils for not building elaborate drainage systems, but even at our own local levels, you don't have a small space where water can pass. Yeah. When rain falls from your zinc, it is a standstill that nobody can go through. I'm sure that's also a big problem and something we can also work as individuals to solve it. Yeah,
it is also a very big problem, because when we look at it, we see that the government, the city councils or the municipality have a responsibility to make or to build major gutters, but it is not in their area to build mini gutters. Yeah. So in your own area where you find water passing in a waterway, you can develop it. You can develop it also to reduce the impact to your own health as well. So it is something which is good that we can say, okay, in front of my house or behind my house or by my side, I have this waterway that passes by. So I think I should develop it. Maybe if I do not have the resources, maybe I can build stones along the roadside, along that particular path. I can do something locally. I can do something to solve that issue. I may not be an environmental scientist, but one thing I've learned from the expert here in the house, from one explanation that he gave, being that
when water is coming through, when there's a pathway, maybe a gutter for the water to come through, it has a sequence and it will go through coordinated because you've created a pathway. But once there is no pathway, you will see now the water will be spread everywhere because the water is trying to expand their banks.
Yeah.
I'm learning. Because the water is trying to expand their banks, and so now you find that water is scattered almost all around the community, even entering our homes, and that is what fosters flooding situations. And a simple case instead of the GC bus situation, wherein since there is no particular gutter or well-structured drainage systems for rainwaters, it is splashed all through the road, and people cannot pass by, or cars cannot pass by without flashing people water. So we are begging you that, in as much as we are putting pressure on the government and municipal authorities to do their work, you can also do the work low-key and ensure that when you build your house, you do ensure that there is a waterway, there's a drainage system. It must not be as elaborate as the municipal ones, but it can be small but still contribute towards ensuring that there's a structured water path for our waters to pass through. And there, you're solving the issue of poor drainage systems and you're minimizing flash floods. Can you please now clap for me? I've learned from the expert. Thank you very much, dear viewers, for staying glued to the program Nature's Corner right up to these part of the program. We are bidding you good farewell at this point. And of course, we want to thank our guest, Franklin Jime, for being here with us. And also, production expertise came from Town for Clothing. We've had a moral support from Aisha, and also from Larry, Daniel, and Julia. Supervision has come in from Alizi Kamilikia, the editor-in-chief. And we've had general coordination from the manager of High TV, Ayok Eno Humphrey. And just as we bid you farewell, we'll have the last words from our guest here before we take leave of you. Last words from you, Franklin.
Again, I end up to say that it is a shared responsibility for all of us to get engaged. One way or the other, we see how we can make the environment more conducive, more better, and more habitable for all of us, not only for us humans, but also for the birds, for the animals, for the microorganisms. Thank you.
All right, make a conducive world for every one of us, for the birds, the microorganisms, every bit, because they all consist and make the environment the whole that it is. Thank you very much, Franklin, once more for being here on the program. It's a pleasure.
Thank you so much.
We hope to have you back another time. And meantime, we also hope to have you viewers glued to your screens again next week, Thursday, as from 3 p.m. to 4 p.m., as we shall be singing the songs of environment. Pleasant ones, hoping you listen and not just listen but implement them. My name is Jabi Ketia, being your humble host throughout the program. Stay tuned to High Television for other interesting programs. For now, bye-bye, and keep watching High TV, and take the rendezvous next week again for the program Nature's Corner.